Following the release of the 9th generation of Pokemon games with Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, many new Pokemon have wormed their way into our hearts and minds. Some great, some not so great. But no matter where they fall for you, they raise some curious questions. Questions I seek to answer. And in this video, I want to answer the question of can you beat Pokemon Violet with only a Lechonk? Let's begin. We start off the adventure by talking to our mom, then to Director Clavel, then to Director Clavel again. We pick Sprigatito because that will make sure Nemona picks Quaxly, and that will become important later on in the challenge. And then we fight Nemona, but because a Sprigatito is not a Lechonk, we throw the match and Nemona is none the wiser. So we travel to Poco Path, get some Pokeballs from Nemona, and we catch the beloved mascot of the channel, Chonkers, the Lechonk, and it is now that our challenge can officially begin. I decide that to start, we need to get some levels since Chonkers is only level 3 right now, so I decide to start calling the piggy population like it's an overcrowded Minecraft farm. There is, however, a dual purpose to this slaughter. You see, Lechonk gives HP EVs, and that is something that we need to talk about. This challenge is hard, specifically the endgame trainers and the challenges surrounding them. So I meta the absolute heck out of this challenge. EV training is of paramount importance for us, and luckily for us, it's quite easy to manage in Generation 9, but we'll come back to that in a bit. For right now, we get to level 7 before we continue on to deal with Miraidon and his love for Mom's fresh homemade BLTs. So we go through a cave, break some rocks, chase some dogs away, and now we're fighting the backpacking line cook Arven. Since he only has one level 5 Squovet, we beat him in short order because Lechonk is very powerful. With the well done steak out of the way, we can continue on towards Messagoza. Unfortunately, we have to fight Nemona before we can get into town. You see, Nemona has 2 Pokemon. We can beat her Quaxly easily enough, but her Pawmi has the ability to terrastalize, and sadly for us, we simply do not have the moves, the bulk, or the stats to defeat it. Luckily for us though, the game does not demand a victory against Nemona here, so we can continue on even though we lost into Messagoza. Now this is where the EV training really takes off. I make a beeline straight to Delibird Presence and buy a Power Bracer, which gives me 8 attack EVs for every Pokemon I defeat. So I go back outside and start another round of Piggy calling, and 30 minutes later, I have max EVs in attack. Now I realize I'm broke, so I sell everything I won't need and buy a Power Weight for more HP EVs, which I will eventually realize was very much the wrong play. But we'll have to deal with the consequences of that choice later on. So I go back out, spend another 15 minutes with the lesser Lechonks, and then bada bing, bada boom, level 13 and max EVs. Training complete. Now we can move on to the final little bit of tutorials with our introduction to our new school, Uva Academy. We save Penny, get a cool rock from Nemona, agree to help Giga Chad, and start the various storylines of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in Victory Road, the Path of Legends, and Starfall Street. We also, at this point, gain the ability to ride Miraidon, which drastically speeds up our traversal of Paldea. With all of these tutorials out of the way, we are now free to explore the world and choose our own path throughout the 16 badges of the Paldea region. Though due to the fact that the levels of opponents and gyms do not scale with us, we are slightly limited in our options on how to proceed. You see, my philosophy when it comes to this challenge is that while it would be easy to simply level Lechonk up to level 100 and sweep through the game, it would be significantly less fun. So I tried my best not to become drastically overleveled to preserve the challenge of only using Chonkers. With that in mind, it wouldn't make much sense to get all the way up to level 50 just to fight someone like Grusia and still have that fight be challenging, only to then turn immediately around and fight Katie and have no trouble with her whatsoever. So I choose to go after Titan Cloth first. I like to prioritize the traversal skills you unlock from the Path of Legends, so I focus on them in the beginning parts of this challenge. The strategy for Titan Cloth is to use the move Dig, which Lechonk learns at level 17. Unfortunately, my first attempt at Cloth ends in failure due to Dig not doing enough damage for the 2-hit KO and losing to an Anger Shell boosted Rock Smash. Attempt number 2, on the other hand, is much more successful after leveling up to level 19 and actually getting the 2-hit KO this time. So Cloth runs away, Arvin joins the party, we dig more holes, and are rewarded for our efforts with a badge and a new photo for our collection. Next up on the agenda is the artisan grass-type gym leader, Brassius. His puzzle is quite simple. Just gather the Sunflora from around the town and observe as Brassius shatters his kneecaps jumping off of a windmill. Once again, I lose on the first attempt because of his Terra Grass Sudowoodo being very powerful when combined with his Trailblaze move. So I reassess the situation and decide I need more power. Luckily for us, Chonkers is a physical attacker, but he just isn't as good as he could be. So to rectify that, I go just outside of Cortondo City to pick up an Adamant Mint to change Chonkers from Calm Nature to Adamant Nature, as well as level him up to level 21 so he learns the move Headbutt. These changes allow Chonkers to defeat Brassius' Petalil, his Smoliv, and his Terra Sudowoodo with the help of an Oranberry and a Tail Whip. This victory nets us yet another badge. 2 out of 18. With Brassius defeated, we move on to the Cortondo City gym leader, Katie. So we masterfully shove some olives around and jump straight into the fight. We're quite powerful compared to Katie at this point in time, and the reason I did Katie second instead of first is because Brassius rewards us with the Trailblaze TM, and I wanted that ASAP. Regardless of when we're fighting Katie, Terra Normal Headbutt is more than capable of defeating all of her Pokemon, and we defeat her also in short order, securing us our 3rd out of 18 badges. Next up is our first foray into the Starfall Street questline, where we meet the various captains of Team Star, as well as making introductions with our new friend Clive, who has very graciously offered his assistance with helping us take down the leaders of said team. To actually get started with the Fire-type leader Mela, we are met with a slight challenge. We have to use 3 Pokemon to KO 20 Pokemon that belong to the grunts of Team Star. Fortunately, because they do not count as true battles and no EXP is rewarded, I decide it's fair game to go out of my way and catch 2 more cheerleader Lechonks for the sole purpose of bolstering the confidence of Chonkers. So, may I introduce Chonk and Chonky. With the power of Chonk, we are able to reach Mela, but I quickly realize this is going to be a hard-fought battle. I make several attempts at this fight at this point, and spoilers, I lose every one of them. I try various strategies, including workup strats, but Torkoal has a counter in Clear Smog, which removes my boosts. I also try Terra Normal Silk Scarf boosted Headbutt, but even that is not powerful enough. I also try Soft Sand boosted Dig, again, not enough power. I even go so far as to wait for a naturally occurring rainstorm to cancel out Torkoal's sun summoning ability of Drought. And while it is enough to barely beat Torkoal, it is nowhere near enough to allow me to beat her Revavroom. So at this point, I realize I am bashing my head against a wall that I will not be able to scale as I am at the current moment, so I move on and put Mela on the back burner. So now that I put Mela behind me for the moment, I realize that Iono is pretty close both on the map and in level to me, so I decide it's best to tackle the streaming gym leader herself. Before I can try that though, I have to fight Nemona again. Her Rockruff and Palmy go down easily enough to headbutt, but her Quaxwell gets very lucky with a confusion from her Terra Water boosted Water Pulse, which inevitably costs us the match. Luckily for us, this is yet another fight with our rival that we are not required to win, so while my pride and my wallet have taken a hit, we can still move on. And when it comes to Iono, despite being several levels weaker than Chonkers at this point, really makes us work for this win. Though not because she's being particularly clever or strategic, no, she's just getting absurdly lucky. Of my 6 total attempts, the first 5 are lost because every single time I get paralyzed through various circumstances, either through Luxio's static ability or from the secondary effect of the move Spark. And when I try to give Chonkers a cherry berry, her Wattrel has the move Pluck, so she eats my berry and paralyzes me anyway. At this point, I'm getting pretty frustrated with the nonsensical luck that I am facing, and I decide I need a break from all these battles. So I go out exploring in an effort to do some future-proofing of Chonker's moveset. You see, Lechonk has some pretty powerful TM moves that it can learn. The 4 notable ones that I'm interested in right now are Zen Headbutt, Iron Head, Play Rough, and Bulldoze. All very powerful moves that offer Lechonk pretty decent coverage for various types and weaknesses. Each of these moves can be found in the overworld as items you can pick up, however some are more difficult to get than others. Zen Headbutt, for example, is rather tricky to find. Outside of Medali City, there are a series of cliffs and plateaus. It is on top of one of these plateaus where Zen Headbutt is located. Unfortunately, it's inaccessible to us right now because we do not have Miraidon's ability to either fly or climb walls. That's what I would say if I wasn't as creative as I am. See, by taking advantage of the mechanic of where your trainer model is positioned at the start of a battle, you can cross otherwise uncrossable chasms. You see, when you enter a battle, your trainer jumps behind your Pokemon so that you're always positioned behind them. If you combine this fact with a tiny bit of luck and clever positioning, you can get to Zen Headbutt with the help of a particularly brave Tauros. Ironhead is next up, and while not necessarily difficult to get to, it is a rather tedious journey because it is located on the snow-covered cliffs north of Casseroya Lake, a location we have not been to yet. What makes this tedious is once again the fact we do not have very many traversal skills with Miraidon to work with. So to get to our destination, we have to travel north from Medali, up to the Glaciado Mountain Pokemon Center, and then start heading west. Eventually, we'll reach a lake and a series of rivers, and while this might seem like an impasse, because we do not have the ability to swim yet, we can't jump that far, nor can we throw Chonkers over there for some easy teleportation, we have to once more get creative. And by get creative, I mean wing it and hope we can get lucky and take advantage of the fact that Miraidon has very odd behavior when rapidly switching between land and water. So with a lot of bobbing and jumping, we do actually manage to cross the river, and then it's just a short ride over to the TM for Ironhead. Play Rough and Bulldoze are much simpler moves to get your hands on. Play Rough is located on the cliffs just east of Alfornata, but you can essentially just fall onto it, so it's rather simple to find. Though I should mention that to get to Alfornata in the first place without the ability to climb, you will have to go through the caves along the coast to reach the city. Bulldoze is also on some cliffs just north of where you would fight Titan Bombardier, and is another case of simply falling right on top of it. With some new moves and more power, Chonkers and I are ready to take down Iono once and for all. Unfortunately for me, none of these moves will help me with the problem of unlucky paralysis. Luckily for me though, there is an item in Levincia that will help us with that very problem. The Covert Cloak sold in Delibird Presents, which is an item that will prevent secondary effects of moves, like paralysis from the move Spark, from affecting me. This is the key to our winning battle strategy. We work up twice against her Wattrel, then use Terra Normal Headbutt to KO that Wattrel, Dig to KO Bellybot, Trailblaze twice to KO Luxio, which is crucial because that +2 speed will allow us to outspeed her Ace of Mismagius, and at +2 attack, we should be dealing enough damage to OHKO her. Provided, of course, that I use my brain and not use a ground move on a Pokemon with the Levitate ability. Thankfully, she just goes for Confuse Ray instead of a damaging move, so we are able to pull out a victory, if only barely. Though, a victory is a victory, and that does mean another badge for us. The next leg of this journey is very quick and very easy because I am more than prepared for the coming fight. This is when I try my hand at battling Titan Bombardier. This fight went by in the blink of an eye because I am quite powerful compared to the very confused Stork. We simply deal more damage than it does, and it goes down in short order thanks in part to Arven's Knackley. And speaking of Arven, he makes us a questionably delicious yet bitter sandwich that we very subtly give to Miraidon and his black hole of a stomach for disposal purposes. Arven pretends not to notice and tells us his story about how his dog is very sick. We proceed to tear up a little and swear on the name of the creator Arceus to heal this sick dog. With a new, unbreakable resolve, we continue our journey. This is the point of the challenge where I should talk at least a little bit about one of the main mechanics of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, terastallization. If you didn't know, terastallization is the unique mechanic of Scarlet and Violet, like Mega Evolution, Z-moves, and Dynamaxing were in past generations. Terastallization allows for Pokemon to essentially change its type at will to whichever its Terra type is. In this case, Chonkers right now is a normal Terra type, which incidentally boosts the power of his normal type attacks, hence why one of the main strats up till now has been using Silk Scarf paired with Headbutt. The reason I bring this up is because there is a mechanic that allows us to change our Terra type, and I want to get access to it sooner rather than later. The downside is, I need 5 gym badges, including the one gained from defeating the Medali City gym leader Larry. I'm at 3 badges right now, so I need to beat 1 more gym before setting my sights on that quickly approaching goal. So to that end, I challenged the gym leader of Cascarafa, Kofu. Kofu's gym test is a simple one. All you have to do is beat his upstart assistant in single combat, and then buy Kofu some seaweed straight from the Hoenn region with his own money. So long as you get the winning bid, you are free to challenge the sailing chef himself. It's in this fight where I realize I'm at a huge disadvantage because I am very slow. Both Veluza and Wugtrio outspeed me and hit incredibly hard in return. My own counter is once again the move Trailblaze, which raises my speed 1 stage per use. But even at double my current speed, Wugtrio is still faster than me, which leads to a problem. Veluza whittles me down with Aqua Cutter, only for Wugtrio to come in and finish me off. And even if I do get past Wugtrio, there's simply no way for me to beat his Terra Water Crabominable with only Trailblaze. After about 7 attempts at this fight, all of which were lost because Wugtrio got a flinch off with Headbutt, I decide I need to go back and take care of Mela before I get drastically overleveled. And even though I did have the concern that I might be overleveled, I actually didn't have to worry about that because I still had to train myself up to level 40 before I was powerful enough to actually beat her Starmobile. The key to victory this attempt was getting my hands on the move Rain Dance in the desert. So with a flinch of my own, and weakened fire moves thanks to the rain, we finally beat Mela and topple the first of the Team Star leaders. With the few extra levels we got over the course of battling Mela, I feel we are ready to go back and finish off Kofu, and that's exactly what I do. I already knew that I could beat Veluza and Wugtrio easily enough, I simply lacked the power to beat Crabominable. So how do I get more power? Old reliable, work up. Using Yawn on Wugtrio buys me the turns I need to get to +3 from workup so I can beat the crab with a single headbutt. After turning all of Kofu's Pokemon into fresh fillets, we get ourselves another badge. With the creatures of the deep done and dusted, I figure we might as well take care of the next closest objective, one that happens to be much darker and edgier, Team Star's Giacomo. Though at this point he really won't be troublesome because he is one of the first members of Team Star that you are meant to face, and we do have a very powerful physical fairy move in Play Rough right now, so neither his Pawniard nor his dark type Buick stand anything resembling a chance against us. So in less than 15 minutes, we have yet another badge in our pockets. So as you might gather, now that I have 4 gym badges, I prioritize defeating Larry. But before I get to the battle with Larry proper, you have to see one of the funniest glitches I've personally seen in a Pokemon game in a long time. I call it the Flying Everyman. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is a gift that keeps on giving. Aside from his incredible aerial skills, what can I say about Larry that hasn't already been said? This man is an absolute beast. Pitting normal types against normal types, there is no advantage, there is no disadvantage. It is a battle of iron wills and pure strength. Pigs, koalas, birds, and whatever the heck the Dunsparce is, this is the hardest fight yet. You see, Larry has 3 Pokemon, Komala, Dunsparce, and Staraptor. The normal strat won't work effectively here because I can't use Yawn on Komala because of its comatose ability, so I can buy time to use my stat boosting moves, which if I don't have, the battle becomes next to impossible. While Komala isn't the strongest Pokemon ever, the Dunsparce and Staraptor might as well be. There are several factors that make those two Pokemon terrifying. Dunsparce has Hyper Drill, which is a 100 base power move that when combined with Stab becomes a 150 base power move. Chonkers rarely, if ever, survives this, even if he's at full health. Get hit with this move and it's an instant loss. And despite what the battle you're watching right now is showing, it's not easy to deal with such a bulky Pokemon. Ironically, this first attempt is the farthest I get in this fight for a while because it takes me well over 2 hours of fruitless attempts to make any progress whatsoever. In the interim, let me mention some notable strats I tried to use. Taking advantage of Komala's penchant for using Yawn on me with the move Sleep Talk. Too unreliable. Giving Chonkers a Chesto Berry to prevent sleep. Sacrificing your item slot for the whole battle is too detrimental. Using Uproar to prevent sleep entirely. A special move that locks you into using it for several turns? Not good for Chonkers. How about replacing Headbutt for Double Edge for more power and combining it with Substitute to prevent Yawn? Nope. Recoil damage makes it impossible to beat Staraptor even if we outsped it, which we don't. So with all of these strats failing, what can we do? How do we win? With this item, the Mirror Herb. But wait, Dianite, you may be asking, doesn't the Mirror Herb allow you to copy an opponent's stat changes once per battle? How would that help? None of Larry's Pokemon raise their stats. Yeah, you're entirely correct, but that's not the effect of the herb that we're after. We're going to use its secondary effect, one that allows us to expand our moveset from level up moves and TMs into egg moves. You see, the Mirror Herb allows a Pokemon to learn its species' egg move if it's holding it while on a picnic with another Pokemon that knows said egg moves. So what egg move does Lechonk know that will be the tipping point in the battle? Well, let me introduce to you Stuffed Cheeks. This move may seem benign at first, but it has two utilities that are invaluable to us. The first is that it allows us to eat a held berry immediately, which itself has the effect of whatever berry you use. Secondly, just by using this move successfully, you get a +2 boost to your defense. Double Lechonk's defense is what we're really after in this fight. So now that all the pieces are in place, let's get to the battle. Komala is simple, just start off with Substitute to block their Yawn, and then go for Stuffed Cheeks while holding a Citrus Berry to get us back to full HP, as well as get our defense boost. Komala will break the sub, but this will get us a turn to use Work Up because of a lucky slam miss. We put up another sub to stop Yawn, and then use Terra Normal Headbutt to knock out Komala. Now we go into Dunsparce with a Substitute. At +1 attack, we just barely don't KO Dunsparce, and he breaks our sub, but we have a lot of HP going into Staraptor now. Intimidate does lower our attack back to neutral, but between our defense and our natural power, we are able to survive their 2 facades at 6 HP, and then get the victory with 2 headbutts of our own. The jelly donuts Larry treats us to after the battle could not taste any sweeter. While riding the high of Larry's jelly-filled donuts, we are instantly brought back to Earth by a surprise Nemona fight. And honestly, it goes by better than it had any right to. See, we have no opportunity to change anything about Lechonk's non-existent item or his Larry-centric moveset, so we're at an extreme disadvantage. No items means Stuffed Cheeks is literally useless, and there's no opportunity for us to put up a sub, so that's out. So with half a moveset, can we even win this fight? Well, no, but we get close. Lycanroc gets us really low on HP, but we do manage to beat it after getting a workup boost. Gumi and Pomo put up no resistance, and even our Quaquaval quivers in fear at the sight of Chonkers. But highly pressurized jets of garnet-filled water is enough to turn us into bacon bits. On the bright side, Gita gives us Terra Blast, which is about the single greatest consolation prize ever, and will become one of the greatest tools in our arsenal for the battles to come. Terra Blast is a powerful physical or special base 80 power move of potentially any type. So is this a weaker, yet more adaptable version of Arceus' Judgment? Well, yes, but also no. See, Terra Blast only changes type itself when you terastalize, so if Chonkers had a Ghost Terra type and used Terra Blast, it would become a base 120 power physical type Ghost move. This allows for insane coverage for Chonkers, and now that we have both the move and access to Treasure Eatery, our strategy for combat increases dramatically. Though it should certainly be mentioned that to make use of the Treasure Eatery, you have to spend 50 Terra Crystals of a given type to change your own Terra type. So where do you get Terra Shards? Terra Raids of the same type that you're after. When you complete a raid, you are rewarded with a small number of shards of that type. That being said, however, I did take a teensy tiny shortcut. To save myself time, I did allow myself to trade Chonkers over to my Scarlet file where I had an overabundance of shards, so I can change types pretty much at will. I don't feel this invalidates the run because I used Chonkers for nothing but changing the types, which is something I could do in Violet if I was willing to put in the several hours it would take to beat upwards of 50 Terra raids with Chonkers alone. It's certainly possible, I just don't want to do it. So going forward, if our Terra type suddenly changes, assume Chonkers took a vacation to an alternate reality to try out some new food. So we'll take advantage of Chonkers' ability to rewrite reality to make ourselves very hot and very spicy, all to take down a rare metal Alaskan bullworm. We deep fry the worm until a nice crispy golden brown and throw that bad boy straight onto Arvin's newest concoction. Introducing fried earthworm on freshly baked sourdough, garnished with fresh oregano, Italian spices, mayo, and a dab of vinegar, all tied together with one-of-a-kind salty herba mystica. A true masterpiece that will scintillate the taste buds of even the most picky of mabastiffs. With our stomachs satiated and our fiery confidence higher than ever, we try our hand at hunting the most dangerous game, the one called Iron Treads. Though I must say, I expected more of the beast, for he too also melts before the majesty of the crystal candelabra we've glued to our head. The sandwich Arvin makes us is very much not for me because I cannot stand sour things. But I am able to deduce that this plant must be what Red Bull is made from, because when Miraidon devours it, he grows wings. I don't look this gift horse in the mouth, and we move on. I'm still a fire type at this point, so naturally I believed that the ice gym would be child's play for me. So I travel up to the peak of the Glaciato mountain range, challenge myself with using Miraidon as a snowboard, and maneuver our way into a fight with Grusia. But he has the same technique as Nemona, pressurized jets of water. He extinguishes my flames and destroys my candelabra. I must rethink the strategy. If scented candles aren't enough, then we go a step further. A giant metal axe. The moth goes down. The bear falls. The icy land whale with arms deals much damage, but it too meets its end. And even the unthawed turkey perishes before my shiny axe. Grusia yields to the might of Chonkers and grants us a badge in recognition of our greatness. Only 2 gym leaders remain at this point, and they will be my priority. So between my 2 options of Tulip and Ryme, I choose Tulip because I want to delay Ryme's double battle gym for as long as possible. Sadly for me, we are forced into another rival fight, and this is one I'm not even remotely prepared for because by this point, Chonkers is completely kitted out for a fight against Tulip's psychic Pokemon, not Nemona's dirt-slinging dog. So when she hits me with Sand Attack, I know the fight is already over. Her Sliggoo ending the battle with a critical hit is just salt in the wound. Nemona's luck and hacks aside, we'll pretend that fight never happened and move on to the fight with Tulip. Well, I would get to the fight if I didn't have to have a session of interpretive dance with a woman I've absolutely never met. I've never met this man in my life. He's my student, unwillingly. C'est la vie, at least Chonkers had fun. With Chonkers ready and raring to go, we terastalize by channeling our deepest, darkest thoughts, and we play this Farigiraf for an absolute fool. Zen Headbutt does nothing to us, and we destroy it with bad vibes in return. Gardevoir thinks it's special because it has Fey blood. Well, I can assure you, it's not. My head is made of pure iron, and while that does make it more difficult at airports, it does allow me to destroy fairies with the utmost ease. My boosts are already set, so a Spathra can't do anything to me, and I'm sorry to say, Tulip, but your bouquet has wilted, and I alone stand victorious. 1 gym badge remains. So now we approach arguably the most controversial aspect of this challenge. Ryme's gym is exclusively double battles. We cannot continue to fight with only one Pokemon, they literally turn you away at the door if you try. So how do we proceed? Well, I think the most fair way of ensuring the integrity of this Lechonk only run is to invoke the Tate and Liza clause. What is this clause, you may be asking? Is it perhaps the long-awaited 4th movie in the beloved holiday trilogy starring Tim Allen? No, it isn't. Basically, I go into these fights with a pathetically weak, underperforming Pokemon that's meant to faint on turn 1, so the battle is essentially turned into a 1v2. So of course, we turn to Chonk and Chonky, our cheerleading Lechonks, to help out. It's only now I realize I should have named them Cheech and Chonk. Oh, so many missed opportunities. With our handstanding circus-bound Miraidon, we are more than ready to fight our final gym in the Paldea region. Her rhymes may be fire, but her battling leaves something to be desired. Chonky does go down on turn 1, which is about as good as it can be in a double battle. Chonkers retaliates with a blast of pure malice that scatters Bayonet to the winds. The crowd, however, breaks this battle completely by giving us an Omni boost, so we're easily able to send Houndstone back to the grave, banish Toxicity to the Shadow Realm, and condemn Mimikyu to an eternity of getting slightly stale breadsticks at restaurants, but not stale enough that you'd be fine with sending them back and demanding another basket. Chonkers has some weird ideas for punishment when he's a dark type. Anyway, with the defeat of Ryme, we have acquired all 8 gym badges and now bring our grand total up to 14. 3 Team Star bosses and 1 Titan Pokemon remain. With the completion of all 8 gyms in the game, now we turn our focus to the last few leaders of Team Star that we've yet to face. We have 3, Aerie, Ortega, and Attakus. Though, being completely honest, I forgot that Attakus existed entirely, otherwise I would have faced him much sooner. As it stands, I'm going to be quite over-leveled compared to him by the time we fight, but that's for the future. For now though, I focus on beating the fairy godparent owning child that is Ortega. Long story short, Azumarill destroys me. Aqua Tail does around 90% of my total health, and the last 10% is simply not enough to go against the rest of his team. Luckily, we do have one final option to get stronger that isn't pure leveling: hyper training. If you don't know what hyper training is, I wouldn't blame you. It is, after all, mainly used in the competitive sphere of the Pokemon community. However, in challenges like this, it certainly can play a major role. Without getting too deep into the minutiae of the game's mechanics, there is a series of values that all Pokemon have called IVs, or individual values. These values can range anywhere from 0 to 31 and affect the overall stat of a given Pokemon. Take for example 2 Dittos. These 2 Dittos could be the exact same in every conceivable way except for their speed IVs. Ditto A has 0 speed IVs and Ditto B has an IV of 31. At level 100, Ditto A will be 31 points slower than Ditto B, even though they're otherwise exactly the same. All of this is important because Chonkers doesn't have perfect IVs, and thus is not as powerful as possible. This is where hyper training comes into play, because through hyper training, you can artificially raise your IVs to 31, the maximum value. Thankfully, in Generation 9, hyper training is more accessible than ever because of several changes made to the mechanics. In the past, you had to be level 100 before you could use this feature. In Scarlet and Violet though, that level requirement has been lowered down to level 50. Additionally, you needed to use bottle caps to pay for hyper training, which used to be rare in-game items, and while that is still true, in these games you can simply buy them. So in the end, Chonkers trains at the local hyperbolic time chamber and achieves his perfect form. Ortega won't know what hit him. While the hyper training did give Chonkers a noticeable boost in overall bulk, the main reason this is a winning battle is because for whatever reason his Azumarill decides to go with Play Rough instead of the far more powerful Aqua Tail. As a Steel type, we resist it and use Trailblaze in return, which allows us to outspeed Azumarill as well as the rest of his team. Iron Head is used to easily sweep up everyone else, including his bedazzled 2003 Honda Civic. So remember when I said I forgot about Attakus existing? Well, this is when I remember, so I rush off to fight the masked shinobi luchador himself before I gain any more levels. Though, unfortunately, it did go exactly as I suspected it would. As I am a Steel type nearly double his level, there is no trouble in this fight at all. Bulldoze alone is able to defeat all his Pokemon in exactly 5 turns. Though I will say, there is something so very satisfying about being able to utterly crush an opponent with Lechonk with no prep whatsoever. Trust me, that does not happen again. Now that we only have Titan Tatsugiri and Eri left, I decided to just flip a coin to see which one I would do. It was heads, thus Tatsugiri. Armed with nothing but a fishing pole, our wits, and one single anchovy, I traveled to Castle Royal Lake to hopefully land the massive Dondozo who slumbers in the depths. Since this fight is a two-parter against Dondozo itself and then Tatsugiri, I had to plan for both a water type and then a dragon type. The strategy for this fight ultimately ended up being a combination of Seed Bomb for Dondozo, paired with the defense-lowering nature of Greedent's Tail Whip to deal with the Dawn, as well as Terra Fairy boosted Terra Blast to deal with the overzealous Sushi. Compared to some of the previous as well as some of the upcoming fights, this one went rather well. This wraps up our Titan hunting adventure with Arven as we get our hands on the final Herba Mystica that we need to unlock the last of Miraidon's traversal skills, as well as fully heal Mabosstiff. Wanting to take full advantage of the fact that Chonkers is a fairy Terra type, I built the set for Eri around that fact. This was one of the harder fights for me because both the natural type matchup as well as some of the type matchups when I terrestrialize are very much not in my favor. Eri, as a fighting type specialist, would completely dominate Lechonk normally, and with Pokemon like the part poison type Toxicroak and the part steel type Lucario, I'm going into this fight with a huge disadvantage. On turn 1, I have to terrestrialize to bait a now ineffective Brick Break while I raise my speed with Trailblaze. And now that I'm faster, I can use Zen Headbutt to beat Toxicroak. And it is important to have both Fairy and Psychic moves because of Toxicroak and its poison typing resisting my Fairy moves. Now it's Passimian's turn, and I need to use Workup, otherwise I simply lack the power to defeat later Pokemon. And while close combat does bring me down to half, I do take Passimian down. Next up is Annihilape, and it's one of those Pokemon that I needed the bulk up boost for. As a naturally bulky attacker, even at half health I would lose if I didn't take it down in one hit first. Luckily, Terra Blast, unlike Zen Headbutt, has 100 accuracy, so I don't have to gamble the miss. Lucario just barely survives Terra Blast, but because I see it's only using Aura Sphere, I get greedy out of necessity and go for another 2 whole workups, which is only possible because of the passive recovery from leftovers. Having defeated the rest of her team, all that's left for us is to face her grandpa's old Lincoln. Luckily, my tactical genius is unparalleled because those workups were integral to putting the car out of commission. Over an hour of attempts later, I have finally beaten Eri, and that means I have completed every last gym, toppled every team star leader, and defeated every Titan Pokemon. We now have all 18 badges in Pokemon Violet, and every last one of them was gained by only using a Lechonk. Now we're able to move on to the final stretch of the game. Right now, I think it's fair to say that we are definitely in the end game. We only have a handful of battles left, and man are they challenges. Between the choices of the bosses of each of the storylines of the game, I ultimately chose to tackle the Elite Four. I made this choice after no small amount of deliberation. Essentially, what it came down to was the line of thought that if I saved it for last, I might actually be overleveled, depending on how much more I needed to train to beat anyone else. And I do think I ultimately made the correct decision. The Elite Four presents a unique challenge for us in that we have to fight 4 powerful trainers, each of whom have a different type specialty, which is a problem. We have to go into the Elite Four and beat all of them without changing the most important aspect of Chonker's build, his Terra type. We have to choose one single Terra type that will allow us to beat Rika, Poppy, Larry, and Hassel, ground, steel, flying, and dragon type specialists respectively. The first Terra type I considered was Ice, as that would give us an advantage against 3 out of the 4 members, because ground, flying, and dragon are all types that are weak to Ice. The reason why Ice doesn't work is because Poppy would destroy an Ice type, and even if I chose not to terrestrialize, I wouldn't do enough damage with normal or coverage moves, so Ice is out. This quickly led to the realization that Poppy was the biggest roadblock for the Terra type. I needed a way to beat her Steel types by using Terra Blast, because even Dig, the most powerful super effective move Lechonk learns naturally, isn't going to be enough to overcome her Pokemon's natural defenses. and even if it was, her Bronzong has Levitate, which would be game over for us, so ground is also out. The type I ultimately settled on was Terra Fire, as that gives me a super effective attack that hits all of Poppy's Pokemon. The thing is though, Terra Fire only gives me an advantage against Poppy. I have to face everyone else without the added benefits of a better Terra type. That means I'm using Terra Fire as a purely defensive option or not at all, so I have to win with Lechonk's admittedly wide selection of moves. And I do have to take advantage of this fact a great deal, because I have to change Chonkers' moveset and item between every battle. Luckily, I don't need to change EVs, otherwise I'd be in real trouble. So for the Elite Four, I'm rocking max attack and max speed EVs, because I have other ways of boosting our bulk. As one last quick aside before we get to the battles proper, I do need to talk about one aspect of our set, particularly Stuffed Cheeks. You may remember this move as the key to victory against Larry, and it's no coincidence that both this move and Larry himself are making a return at the same time. Stuffed Cheeks doubles our defense if we eat a berry with it, but citrus berries are rather useless for us at this point, as the health recovery is minimal at best. In so many cases, I need the double defense from this move, but I can't justify using the item slot for a citrus berry, so I need a better option. This is where Dendra's ESP minigame makes a critical return. There are several levels of increasing difficulty that you can unlock if you do well in her minigame. We need to do this because the rewards are exactly what we want. The rewards for completing the all-out level of the game are these berries: the Lychee, Ganlon, Salac, Patea, Apricot, and Landsat berries. These are very special berries that are normally only found in Area 0, which we certainly don't have access to right now. Each of these berries has the capacity to increase a given stat by an entire stage. Having this utility drastically increases the opportunities Chonkers will have in the Elite Four. As an example, if I combine Stuffed Cheeks with a Lychee berry, we could boost our defense and attack by 200% and 150% respectively in a single turn. It has all the benefits of holding something like a choice band with none of the drawbacks. All of this has been set up so we can prepare Chonkers for the Elite Four, but now we're ready. Since the winning run took nearly 2 hours alone, I certainly don't have time to talk in depth about all of the failures and different strategies that went into these fights. Just assume that if a strat might have worked, I probably tried it at some point. So, let's finally get to the fights against the Elite Four proper. We begin with Rika and her ground types. She leads with Whiscash, which is good for us because this is a great Pokemon for us to buff up against. The goal is to get 2 workups, then KO with Trailblaze to get the speed boost. And thanks to a lucky Muddy Water miss, we get all of them off with minimal HP loss. Camerupt is up next and goes down to a Bullet Seed. And you may be thinking to yourself, are you actually using Bullet Seed in the Elite Four? Yes, I am, and you'll see why very shortly. Donphan comes out next and is the biggest reason why we needed Bullet Seed. See, Donphan has the ability Sturdy, which makes it impossible to beat with one Seed Bomb, but when I combine Bullet Seed with Loaded Dice, I can guarantee the 5 hits needed to beat Donphan through Sturdy. The lightning fast Dugtrio takes the field now, and is the reason why we needed the speed boost from Whiscash in the beginning. Paying no mind to the trio, we take it down with more Bullet Seeds. Her final Pokemon Clodsire tears into a pure ground type, which allows for Bullet Seed to once again be the downfall of normally rock-solid Pokemon. 1 down, 3 to go. Now we come face to face with the tiny terror with unbreakable steel types Poppy. But unbreakable doesn't mean unmeltable, and this is where Terra Fire comes to the fore. Much like Rika, Poppy also has a Pokemon with Sturdy, Magnezone, and this is really concerning for me in the planning because under no circumstances is Bullet Seed going to OHKO that, so we have to hope that we can simply survive whatever it does. But we'll get to Magnezone in a moment, as she leads with Copperajah, and the immediate goal is to boost our defense and attack with Stuffed Cheeks and Lychee Berry. Speed doesn't mean much in this fight because steel types are naturally slow and we outspeed her team anyway, so we focus on pure power. Heavy Slam brings us to just above half even through our boosts, but Terra Blast takes care of it in return. She sends out Bronzong next, which goes down with no trouble whatsoever. Perfectly planned. Corviknight falls to the same trap, another OHKO. And now comes Magnezone, and it all depends on what move it chooses. With a 1 million IQ play, they use Light Screen to try and stop my physical attacks. Needless to say, that doesn't work. Her final Terra Steel type is Tinkaton, which even though it's faster than me, still falls to Terra Blast, purely because she terastallized. 2 down, 2 left. Making his triumphant return for unpaid overtime is Larry, who's transformed his normal Pokemon into kings and queens of the sky. So what's new with Larry, you may be wondering? Nothing. He is still a beast who is terrible to fight against. There are 2 main challenges with Larry, Staraptor and Flamigo. Keep in mind that Chonkers can either be a normal type or a fire type for these fights. So what moves does Flamigo have that make it terrifying? Close combat and liquidation. Staraptor having Intimidate does not help matters either. Chonkers needs the power to beat all of his Pokemon in a single hit, and to make that happen, we need boosts. Lots of boosts. +2 defense and +1 special defense from Apricot Berry boosted Stuffed Cheeks, +1 speed from Trailblaze, and +4 attack from Workup. That's 6 turns needed for boosts alone, and because of his team composition, we need to make that happen on a single Pokemon, his lead of Tropius. This is a very tall order, but it is possible by manipulating his AI. To know how this works, we need to understand Tropius completely. His moveset is Air Slash, Solar Beam, Dragon Pulse, and Sunny Day. Dragon Pulse is never used, so we can forget about that entirely. It always wants to start with Sunny Day, so we get our defense boosting Stuffed Cheeks, an integral turn 1 play. Using Apricot Berry to get a special defense buff allows us to survive his Air Slashes rather well. Turn 2 is crucial because this is when I Terastallize into a fire type. In previous attempts, I Terra turn 1, which baits Air Slash. If I hold off until turn 2 though, I bait in Solar Beam, which after Terastallization gives us more HP to work with than we otherwise would have had. So I go for Trailblaze, which gives us the necessary speed boosts for later Pokemon. Turns 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all about tanking Air Slashes while working up. On turn 6, the sun from his initial Sunny Day runs out, which is again crucial because Tropius doesn't see the KO with Air Slash at 39 HP, so it sets up another Sunny Day, and we get our final workup boost, and now we have the ability to sweep. Tropius falls to Body Slam. Staraptor's Intimidate isn't enough to save it from Body Slam as well. Oricorio is too slow to do anything. Altaria, while bulky, can't survive the Chonk, and now it's time for his ace Flamigo, who also cannot hold a candle against Chonkers. 3 down, 1 remains. Once again, we are met with someone who claims to be our teacher, and I still have doubts about that, but now is not the time to ponder the lack of adult supervision on this journey. It's time to fight dragons. And contrary to what you might believe, they are much easier to destroy. For this fight, we once again need boosts, specifically double attack and 1 speed boost. But how we get those is slightly different here because we actually cannot afford to waste a turn on Stuffed Cheeks. Hassel leads with Noivern, which uses Super Fang, a move that is guaranteed to do damage equal to half your current HP. This makes Stuffed Cheeks useless. Luckily, there is a workaround. If we do 2 workups on turns 1 and 2, Noivern will do Super Fang, which brings us down to half, and then use Dragon Pulse, which, if we get a lucky roll, will allow us to just barely survive at 3 HP. This naturally pops our held Salac Berry, getting us the required speed boost. All that's left now is to hope Play Rough doesn't miss. Noivern goes down. We use Dig on Dragalge instead of Play Rough to knock this beast out. Flapple, totally undercooked and can't handle the Play Rough. Haxorus is much the same, and his beastly Baxcalibur manages to survive the Play Rough, but because of an act of God, he misses Icicle Crash, and we do not miss the Play Rough that we need to defeat the final member of the Elite Four. So this challenge has reached something of an inflection point. You see, prior to getting the ability to change our Terra type, we had to use clever strategies to defeat our opponents. I'm looking at you, Larry. Then, once we could change our Terra types, battles essentially became choose the correct type and click Terra Blast until you win. That simple strategy has been thrown out the window, into the trash, set on fire, and had its ashes scattered to the winds. We're now in the stretch of the game that I call the final 6, because we have 6 more fights to go. Gita then Nimona, Clavel then Penny, and then Arven and Turo. And the thing about all of these fights is that none of them have a single type of Pokemon that they use, which means I can't pick an advantageous Terra type and 3 support moves and have a relatively easy time with these fights. In all of these fights, I have to rely on my Terra type and thus Terra Blast to be able to deal with as many Pokemon as possible. In the majority of cases, I'll choose Terra Blast, a coverage move to deal with the Pokemon that Terra Blast won't be enough for, and 1 or 2 coverage or support moves to make the set. The lack of a singular type to plan against makes things incredibly difficult, even more so than the already challenging Elite Four. Geeta exemplifies this challenge better than anyone else, so let's take a look at the set for Chonkers to see what we're working with. For EVs, we're doing something totally different. We're running 252 special attack EVs, 168 attack EVs, and 90 speed EVs. This spread was specifically chosen to accomplish a few goals. It ensures Terra Blast is a special fire type move for Avalugg, and it allows me to speed creep Glomora at +1. Geeta's team and the order she sends them out in is Espathra, Avalugg, Kingambit, Veluza, Gogoat, and then Glomora. For us to win, in theory, we need to meet several objectives over the course of the fight. We need to get to +1 special attack by Kingambit so it'll go down in 1 hit. This can't be done on Kingambit, however, or Avalugg before it because they'll both knock us out in 1 turn, so it has to be her lead of Espathra. This is doable if our set is Yawn, Workup, and Terra Blast. All of this though is predicated on whether or not she uses Reflect on turn 1. If she uses Lumina Crash, it's a reset. Once you do manage to get the Yawn on the Reflect, tank the Lumina Crash and counter with Workup. Now we've got the +1 special attack and it's asleep. So now we just have to get lucky with 2 turns of sleep so we can Terrastalize and knock it out, which is easier said than done. With the help of our handy little boosts, both Avalugg and Kingambit go down to our special fire Terra Blast. Veluza's up next, and we naturally outspeed it, so we don't have to worry about anything except just clicking Bullet Seed to beat it. Now it's time for Gogoat, though in the battle I'm showing we can ring the Moron alert because I believe so wholeheartedly that I'm holding a Salac Berry that I stall for turns with Yawn and Workup so that when it uses Zen Headbutt, it'll knock me down low enough to pop the berry, which if I actually had, would have gotten us the +1 speed we needed to outspeed Glomora and win the fight. Problem is, Chonkers has a gambling addiction at the moment and is holding a loaded dice, so no speed for us, and Glomora knocks us out. The problem is, Glomora has Earth Power, and that kills us 99% of the time at full HP, let alone after taking a Lumina Crash which halves our special defense. The long and short of it is, it's not possible to win without that speed. So this is where Chonkers suffers from 5 move syndrome, because I need to raise speed either through Trailblaze, which I don't have a slot for, or by replacing our dice with a Salac Berry. If I take the latter route, I need to rely on luck, that against both Veluza and Glomora I get a 5-hit combo with Bullet Seed, which turns this entire fight into me needing one lucky break after another. Instead of relying on luck for so many aspects of the fight, I chose to hopefully balance luck with leveling. I leveled up to level 85 and this did eventually prove to be successful. After dozens of attempts at this fight, all of which being lost to Espathra using Lumina Crash, we finally got a run where it used Reflect. So we put it to sleep, got our boosts, and took it down. Avalugg and Kingambit both fell to Fire Terra Blast. The roll to beat Veluza with Seed Bomb at level 85 is now in our favor and we are able to take it down. But man, are the turns against Gogo an emotional roller coaster. It bulks up twice. That means there's only a 2% HP buffer between victory and defeat. If it high rolls, we lose. But thankfully, we just barely survive, and because of us stalling with workups, we obliterate her Glomora. After so much leveling, after testing so many strategies, after so many damn Lumina crashes, we can finally say that Chonkers is a champion level Pokemon. The title that's reserved for only the strongest of the strong. It's only fitting that Chonkers bear that title going into the final 5 fights of Pokemon Violet. So bearing the title of champion, it's now time to right so many past wrongs and avenge every failure. It's time to fight Nemona. Nothing held back. From one champion to another, this will be a battle for the ages. With the way Nemona's team is set up, the strategy I'm using for the entire battle will be decided at turn 1. Chonkers is still rocking the Fire Terra type purely to cover Earthworm. I would have considered a Ground Terra type, but with Earthworm's immunity thanks to Earth Eater, that's out, so Terra Fire. I've also switched up the EVs to maximum physical attack to maximize damage. 92 EVs go into speed so I can outspeed Lycanroc at +1, and the rest go into defense, also for Lycanroc. Everything revolves around what Lycanroc does here. Since it only has ground and rock moves, it's foolish to Terrastalize, but luckily, I don't need to. The absolute best case scenario is it uses Stealth Rock on turn 1 as I use Stuffed Cheeks with a Salac Berry to double my defense and get my necessary speed boost. If this were to happen, we win, because at that point, we have no less than 3 turns to stack workups to ensure the KO on all her other Pokemon. Nemona, however, does the math, and see I only have 1 Pokemon and uses Stone Edge. Luckily, Nemona is very bad at math and her Stone Edge misses, so we get our boosts for free. We power up to +4 and we sweep her entire team. Lycanroc, Pawmot, Goodra, Dunsparce, Orthworm, Quaquaval. Each one falls to a single strike of the mighty champion Chonkers. We have regained our honor and our pride. We have avenged every past loss. And now we can truly say that we're the champions of Paldea with the completion of the Victory Road questline. But that's not the end of our journey. No, there is still 4 battles left. So we'll continue on by wrapping up the Starfall Street questline, as all we have left is Clavel and Penny. The fight with Clavel, like Nemona, will be determined on how the exchange goes against his lead of Oranguru. This is slightly tricky because Oranguru is a stally Pokemon with Yawn, Reflect, and Foul Play, so it can be slightly difficult to maneuver around. It typically leads with Yawn, so it's time to break out the classic Larry strats, Substitute namely. Though in Clavel's case, it requires more than 1 workup because he has some bulky Pokemon, namely a Moongus. So we need to get to +3 in attack so we can counteract his Gyarados' Intimidate ability. Our win condition for this fight is playing around Oranguru using Yawn. If we predict correctly and use Substitute on his Yawns, we get a free turn to use Workup, which we need to do 3 times. In these exchanges, he uses Reflect, which is unfortunate because we're a physical Chonkers right now, so we have to stall that out ourselves. So with more playing around Yawns and Foul Plays, we do get pretty low on HP, but we do ultimately get to +3, and with a Rock Terra type, we OHKO everything. With the director getting chewed out, we can move on to the now revealed Team Star boss Penny and her team of Evolutions. Luckily for us, this fight is extremely straightforward. Due to the diverse set of types all her Evolutions have, there's no point in trying to figure out a tactically sound Terra type that gives us lots of coverage. No, in this case, we just need power, so we go with classic Terra Normal. Coupled with a specially focused moveset centered around Hyper Voice and Workup, we have a very easy time with this fight. I went with a special focused moveset because every one of her Pokemon know Baby Doll Eyes, which is a priority move that lowers our attack. It would be a pain to use Workup so many times to counter these, so I stuck with using Workup to buff our special moves by getting to +3 and then screaming at the top of our lungs to burst the eardrums of all her Evolutions and achieve another victory. With this loud and bombastic battle and the heartfelt words of Penny, we're able to convince the director to revoke his order of expulsion against Team Star and set up the Star training camps, which, pointless though they may be for us and our champion level Chonkers, they will undoubtedly help those who strive to reach the heights of power that we've ascended to. Our immense power notwithstanding, Penny avoids jail time for hacking a government-sponsored battle association, which is admittedly good for her and for us, because we are going to need her in the not-too-distant future. In the meantime, though, she gives us the power to summon meteors of world-ending sizes. Not that we need it, because Chonkers has no need for such trivial power, and we complete the second of 3 of the main quest lines. Before we get to actually fight Arven, we are met with the request of Professor Turo to bring the Violet Book to Area 0. And while we are perfectly alright with this, Arven, the only voice of reason in this game, is like, that might be a bad idea. We don't believe that, so Arven decides a test is in order. With his Mabastiff fully healed and chomping at the bit to fight, we jump right into it. And before you ask, no, the weather did not change, it's always been raining. I did not have to retry this fight several times because Greedon kept paralyzing us. That didn't happen. Anyway, this fight can be summed up rather simply with the words stuffed cheeks, work up, and our power is beyond mortal comprehension, so when all is said and done, we complete the Path of Legends and all 3 of the Pokemon Violet storylines. Only one thing now remains: Area 0. Area 0 is where all of our story threads are tied together. Everything that we've experienced up until this point was inadvertently to get us to where we are now. We gather all of our dear friends, our fellow champion Nemona, our genius hacker Penny, and the chef of the most delicious sandwiches around, Arven. Together, with the strength of Chonkers and our beloved friend Miraidon, we take a totally safe and not at all potentially lethal trip into the great crater of Paldea. Area 0 is a location filled with formidable Pokemon, some of which we've never seen before. Regardless of the strength of the locals, we will not be deterred, for we are on a mission to unlock the 4 locks within the labs of Area 0. This will allow us to access the final lab in the depths of the crater. Over the course of our descent, we learn from Professor Turo that the experiment that was being carried out in these depths was experimentation into time travel, and some years ago, it was finally met with success in the form of 2 Miraidons being brought back from the distant future. These are the unknown Pokemon that we've been finding within Area 0, future Pokemon. And it's these Pokemon we will have to face in our final confrontation with the Professor. See, the Professor isn't actually the true Turo at all. He's merely a hyper-advanced AI that took the place of the real Turo after he gave his life protecting our Miraidon. This is when AI Turo asks that we destroy the time machine to prevent the Paldea region from being destroyed by these future Pokemon. And that is exactly what we vow to do. Everything surrounding this fight has been extremely meticulously planned to the point where I spent several hours brainstorming and testing plans and sets. AI Turo has 6 immensely strong Paradox Pokemon, and each one has the potential to defeat Chonkers with little effort, so every move we make needs to be exactly according to plan. AI Turo's team consists of Iron Moth, Iron Bundle, Iron Thorn, Iron Jugulus, Iron Hands, and Iron Valiant, and each of these Pokemon has such unique typing that there's only one Terra type that we can choose if we want to win. Let me play the whole winning battle and explain the strategy. Everything in the fight revolves around doubling our attack and boosting our speed. We need the speed boost to outspeed Iron Moth, Iron Bundle, and Iron Valiant, all of whom destroy us if they hit us at all. So while holding a Salac Berry, Chonkers takes first a Sludge Wave, which lowers us to below half health, then we Terrastalize into the Ground type, so the next Sludge Wave gets us to low enough HP that we can eat our Salac Berry. With this, we have all of the boosts that we can get in this fight. So with our boosted speed, we can use Terra Blast to obliterate Iron Moth. Iron Bundle is up next, and while normally fighting a Water Ice type with a Ground type is foolish in the extreme, Terra Blast makes short work of it. Iron Thorns, being Rock Electric, is no match for the earth-shattering power of Chonkers. With the next Pokemon of Iron Jugulus, I make use of Play Rough, because as a part flying type, Jugulus would be totally immune to Terra Blast. Luckily, it hits and it goes down. When it comes to Iron Hands, I need to be careful because it has Fake Out, which can very easily kill me if our HP is low enough from tanking Iron Moth's hits. So to negate this, I go with Protect as our 4th move, and even though it uses Drain Punch in this battle, it's much better playing this safe than sorry. And due to my doubled attack, we're barely able to secure the knockout. This leads us into his final Pokemon of Iron Valiant, who unlike any of his other Pokemon, is taking advantage of his ability of Quirk Drive to boost his own attack. And I will say that had he boosted his speed, this entire strategy goes out the window. Luckily, that's not the case, and we're able to use Terra Blast to finish off the dual blade wielding terror and secure us our final victory. But this fight isn't over yet, because we soon realize that so long as AI Turo exists, so too will the entity known as the Paradise Protection Protocol, who takes umbrage with our efforts to destroy it. So it uses its last resort of the Guardian of Paradise to attempt to destroy us in return. The fight against AI Turo has all but exhausted Chonkers, so we have no choice but to send out Miraidon. The battle looks dicey, but then things start to take a turn. It's Chonkers. He's giving the last of his energy to Miraidon. Suffused with the ultimate power of Chonk, Miraidon unleashes its true power to fell the Guardian of Paradise and secure us a flawless victory. With a heartfelt goodbye from the professor to his son Arvin, Turo sets out for an undoubtedly grand adventure of his own. And now, there's only one thing left for us to do. With our dear friends and partners, we head on home. Man, what an undertaking this adventure has been. This has been a project that's been in the works for longer than the channel's actually existed. I originally started recording the footage for this challenge in mid-December of 2022, and the channel launched in early January of this year, January 6th, I believe. So this has been a long time coming. When I started this, it was really little more than a pipe dream, and I thought it would be pretty fun to do. It's like new Pokemon games come out, so there are new Pokemon, we might as well do a challenge. Little did I know at the time that it would spiral into something that would challenge like every bit of my editing skills and the planning skills. This thing took so long to do. Admittedly, there was a break in the middle. There was like a 2-month break while I was working on other things. Either way, that's neither here nor there. It took me like 3 months to do this challenge, and it has been a massive undertaking. Overall, I'm just super proud of how this turned out, but before I continue, I need to give a massive shout out to Zame for allowing YouTubers like me to use their incredible music in videos like this. So if any of the music from the video tickles your fancy, all of the links and the timestamps for the music are in the description below. With that, if you guys have any suggestions for challenges in this game, Scarlet and Violet, or in past games that you'd like to watch, leave a comment. Tell me what you want to watch. I'd be down to do a lot of things. You'd be surprised at how far I'd be willing to go for a challenge. And hey, while you're down there, drop a like, maybe a sub if you like the channel. It would help the channel grow immeasurably, and I would appreciate it from the bottom of my heart if you could help me make this channel something special. But hey, anyway, I'm just gonna call the very short blurb of post commentary there. If you want to see more Pokemon content from me though, consider checking out my Pokemon Platinum Randomizer Nuzlocke that I streamed a while back on Twitch. It's up on the channel right now. The whole playlist is up there as it stands. You can watch the entire thing. It would be a fun ride. Either way, I set out on this adventure with one question in mind. Can I beat Pokemon Violet with only a Lechonk? And I think that I have definitively proven that yes, you can beat Pokemon Violet with only a Lechonk. So with that, whether you watched for 30 seconds or the entire thing, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Later.